afternoon and happy Monday, and welcome to Stock Market Today by Investors Business Daily. I'm Justin Nielsen, and I'm joined by Ed Carson today. And Ed, we had a nice little recovery in the indexes today, but on the show, we'll be chatting about Repligen, United Rentals, and Marvell Technologies. But first, let's go ahead and dive into those indexes. It looks like the NASDAQ Composite was leading today with 2.3% gain, S&P 500 up 1.8%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1.7%. Ed Carson, what did you make of the action today?
Yeah, it was really nice action. Obviously, there was a turbocharged boost mid-afternoon as President Trump tweeted out that he's feeling great and will leave Walter Reed Medical Center at 6:30 Eastern. Obviously, that releases a bunch of uncertainty there. He does seem to be on the mend, so that is a very positive sign. NASDAQ rebounded. The NASDAQ and S&P came back above their 50-day moving averages after. Especially the NASDAQ had a nasty sell-off on news that Trump had contracted the coronavirus. Meanwhile, the Dow moved above last week's high. The S&P did as well. So positive action, a lot of breakouts. The indexes are looking pretty darn good, and there were a lot of stocks breaking out. That's one of the really positive signs.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week that the rally was not dead. We were still because we were using the Dow Jones Industrial Average as our follow-through day on September 30th. If you go ahead and just again, we normally don't pull up the Dow, but we might as well just address that issue right now. Based on the close that it had, it closed above the low of that follow-through day on the 30th. It's sometimes a little tough to get the right area, but right there you see how Friday closed above it. And yeah, again, the S&P 500 and the Dow had a much better close than the NASDAQ, but the NASDAQ was the one that bounced back the strongest today. And so again, the rally was always intact. It was a little nerve-wracking, I think, going into the weekend with that huge uncertainty, just as the uncertainty of the stimulus bill was the issue that we were dealing with before. But if that has kind of lifted, we still have the election, a month away. So it's not like, we're out of the woods in terms of volatility, but that is, at least in the short term, something that the market does not have to contend with for a little while.
I just want to clarify that if we had closed below the low of the follow-through day, that would not have ended the rally.
No.
It just would have been a bad sign. To close underneath the low of the follow-through day would have been a real negative. I mean, it's especially odd with the headline-driven market. We sold off and came back. It's almost like, from the market's perspective, well, Friday never happened. We just wiped those things off the map. But that's difficult day to day. You don't know if that's going to happen. We didn't know how Trump's condition was going to go on over the weekend and into today.
And we were talking about that on IBD Live today, where it's when you get into one of those situations where it's a little bit more of a dice roll and you just don't have an edge. I mean, no one could have guessed what was going to happen this weekend. And so if you don't have an edge, then it's really difficult to make a heavy bet one way or the other. So it was kind of more of a wait and see approach in a lot of ways. If you were doing position trades and you had some early entries that you got and some cushion, it was easier to hold on to those stocks. If you had made recent purchases, it would have been easy to get shaken out of those on Friday. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the stocks that were looking good today, and we'll start with Repligen. Now, this is RGEN, not to be confused with Regeneron. Regeneron, of course, was also having a good day today, but along with a lot of biotechs, but it was other medical stocks were also showing a lot of strength, not just the biotechs, and Repligen is in the medical products area. I was kind of looking at this as an early entry. You could have been using the 157.46 or even an earlier entry as it kind of crossed resistance, from even last week's high, which kind of matched the high of a few weeks ago. You got a downtrend line. There's just a lot of ways that if you wanted to get into this stock, you could have justified getting into this stock. Ed, what did you make of the action?
Yeah, one more buy point. You could have just used the 10-week line, and even now it's not too far. So, I mean, the official buy point is still just below the official one, but there's been all sorts of things. And again, in this choppy market, if you want to just try to get tiptoe into stocks, is probably a good way to do it, and then build your position into it. Because then if the market or the stock reverses, you can get out without too much pain. Nice action here, base on base kind of situation. Base on bases are nice in rough markets because it shows you that the stock didn't want to sell off. I mean, this one's a little bit deeper than some others, but it's still that general idea. The stock is holding its ground. It's setting up again when the market wasn't necessarily in a great shape. So Some pretty consistent growth here. I mean, we'll see it's been slowing down a bit on the sales growth. I don't know if that's coronavirus related at all. That sort of throws things in the mix on a lot of stocks. I don't know if it would with this stock, but a really nice action here.
Yeah, and just like the base on base, this is kind of the same way we look at like an ascending base, where it's again something that's resisting, not wanting to go down, and you see that the relative strength line, while it's not at a new high, this relative strength line has certainly held up very well. And the correction here was fairly mild. It stayed for the most part above its 50-day moving average, a couple dips below it, and I think that looks like about a 14% correction. There for that flat base most recently. Now flipping over to United Rentals, there was some early weakness that was looking like hitting the housing stocks, and the housing stocks have been one of those areas of strength. Now United Rentals, they're kind of related in that they rent a lot of the construction equipment, the backhoes and things like that you need. This was a strong breakout. I mean, no question on this one in terms of moving through that buy point. Now it does have earnings coming up, and it did get itself extended out of that 5% buy range that we normally take a look at in terms of that blue band that you see on the MarketSmith pattern recognition charts. So it is above that. What do you think of United Rentals today?
Well, this is another base on base, and this one was even tighter. This was just a flat base, and this is about the only part where it really showed any signs, and that was a lot better in the market. This RLS line blue dot showing that it was at a new high as it was breaking out. It actually happened a day earlier on this day. It was sort of a setup day. You probably could have done an early entry off the 50-day bounce. That would have been a way to maybe enter it, but it was when the RS line hits a new high before the stock, that's always especially bullish and shows you how it's outperforming the market. The earnings are not great. It's down this quarter.
Yeah.
It's probably down again for the quarter that just ended. This was our IBD stock of the day, so I'd read more about it, but it's cyclical and people see a bounce. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bounce later in the year. That's what you're seeing with a lot of cyclical names. When people need to build or building homes, doing construction, they call up United Rentals when they need extra equipment or need some, and it so goes up and down, definitely. But we definitely seem to be on an upswing on housing and construction generally.
It might be worth just kind of stepping back to the weekly chart on this one to kind of just see that cyclical nature. It's one that, I mean, the stock is obviously able to make moves, but you will also see these very long periods of sideways action in it. And of course, it can also correct quite mightily as we saw in this coronavirus correction when a lot of stocks were off a lot. Now, when you do get a big correction like that, we generally kind of shy away from those stocks and we wait for them to form new bases, and we have that in play now. Let's go ahead and with NASDAQ Composite being the leading index today, let's go ahead and take a look at a chip stock, Marvell Technology, and this is one that has been on our radar for a while because it's shown a number of areas, and we can go ahead and go back to the daily on this one, but it's a very similar thing that we're seeing. It's that base on base structure. We're again seeing this happen over and over and over again. The pattern recognition isn't catching this on the daily. It did catch it on the weekly. Sometimes it'll catch it on one and not the other, but that's okay. This is still 41.44 buy point. You add 10 cents to that previous high, and it did cross that and close above it.
Yeah, so that's nice action. The RS line is basically right. It's at a new high. This was one of the early leaders. One reason why we're paying attention to it. It was one of the first stocks to break out. The NASDAQ had its follow through day on April 6th, and then it was right around here. It was trying to break out, really convincingly did it in sort of latest May. It's one of the early chip leaders along with NVIDIA, along with, a few of those other names. And so this is one of the first ones, did pretty well here, tried to break out here, obviously hit into the market correction, but during this whole time, the RS line has been really rallying, and during the brief correction we had, really powerful. I mean, for a chip stock, which you think of leading stocks, they're going to sell off some more. This one was very strong, just touching the 50-day line one time and just really powerful. There's a lot of chip names today that were strong. This is the one that was a clear breakout. So definitely one to watch, and these fundamentals too. I mean, there's just a lot of things to like about it.
Yeah, and that's one thing is, you can often see some cyclicality to the semiconductors. You can see a few quarters ago, negative growth with the earnings, negative revenue growth, and now that's kind of turned around. You see that a lot of times with the semiconductors, where you'll have negative go to positive. It'll last for a few quarters and then kind of switch. But they definitely can make big moves while they're on. And Marvell Technology Group does look like it's on right now. Well, that'll do it for us today. Uh, Please join us on IBD Live if you haven't already. Every morning at 6:20 a.m. Pacific Time, 9:20 Eastern. We start the day 10 minutes before the market opens, kind of giving you a layout of what the market is looking like, what stocks we're looking at, and a lot of guidance using our years of experience to kind of help you get through your day, at least that first hour. We usually go for an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah, we talked about all three of these stocks. So that was one thing. You could have gotten to something like, we talked about all three. So we're analyzing breakouts as they're happening, looking at stocks as they're setting up, helping you build your watch lists and do analyses so you can be ready. So when they do break out, you say, I know this stock. I've done my research on it. I'm going to jump on it. So I think it's a really useful tool. I know I've learned a lot over these past 10 or 11 months that we've been on, and I'm really glad to be a part of it and get to listen in on all these experts who've had these decades of experience.
Well, and you are one of the experts as well, because
I like listening to me too.
yeah,
I'm sure.
exactly. You're up there in the decades of experience as well at this point. So, but yeah, we hope you join us, and you can always catch us. Go to investors.com/IBD Live and get a free trial and check it out. There's a lot of interesting information that we're covering every day. Other than that, we'll go ahead and see everyone on the show tomorrow after the close for another Stock Market Today. Hope you join us then. Thanks for watching.